on Thursday. The SEMO women's basketball team could not hold an 18-point lead and lost at home to UT Martin 80-73. Senior Carrie Shepard poured in a career-high 25 points. She hit 7 3-pointers in the loss. The Red Hawks are 1-1 in the OVC and host Austin Peay Thursday. The Kansas City Chiefs will be hosting the Indianapolis Colts in the playoffs Saturday at 3:35.
Get local sports updates on SEMO ESPN 1220, SEMOESPN.com, and the SEMO ESPN app.
Does having a game on the TV make a sports bar? Wings, etc. in Cape and Jackson beg to differ. They take their sports bar status seriously. Wings, etc. is the host of the SEMO Coaches Show every Monday from noon to 1. You can watch SEMO away games at Wings, etc. Plus, get lunch specials and daily specials like 69-cent wings on Monday, 69-cent rib tips on Tuesday, 59-cent Friday too. Plus, they've got free Wi-Fi and a full-service bar and craft beer. Wings, etc. The definition of a sports bar.
Be listening for the 180 Healthcare ticket window to open up for the next big event. For unlimited doctors, no copay, 24/7 gym, and an awesome nutrition app, all included, reach out to 180 Healthcare, 180healthcare.com. Listen for the 180 Healthcare ticket window to ESPN.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
Well, today will be the warmest day of the week, and we have a chance of showers in the forecast here this morning with clouds, 58. Clouds early this evening with clearing tonight, low 47. Sunshine tomorrow with mid-50s for highs, and we turn cooler on Wednesday with sunny skies in the forecast, high 43. Richard DeWettig, the Weather Channel.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
This is Mike Greenberg for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
This is a proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority.
Live in the studio.
It's time for the Red Hawks Coaches Show. Live from Wings, etc. Hear the Coaches Show each week on SEMO ESPN 1220 and 1470. And also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Also, watch the Red Hawks Coaches Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now, let's go live to Wings, etc. Live for the Red Hawks Coaches Show.
And we welcome you in live to the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We are at Wings, etc. in Jackson. Kind of a rainy day, but it's nice and warm and pleasant in here. It smells great. The food is cooking, and you're invited. Stop by. If you've never joined us in Jackson at Wings, etc., just walk in the front door and hang a right. And we're back here in the banquet room. And, of course, on Mondays, they have food and drink specials throughout the week. But on Mondays, their award-winning jumbo wings are just 69 cents at Wings, etc. Their menu features their freshly made burgers. If you are in the mood for wraps, they can help you out. Subs, quesadillas, entree salads. They have smoked ribs and much more here on the menu at Wings. And their appetizer lineup includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears, and their daily half-pound lunch specials start at just $6.99. It's Wings, etc. We're in the Jackson location today, and we're talking Red Hawk hoops with the Red Hawks head coach, Rick Ray. Obviously a lot happened over the weekend as far as basketball goes, but I wanted to kind of right at the top of the show. I know you're a football guy. We got the national championship tonight, but big Red Hawk football news over the weekend. Zach Hall, the outstanding linebacker for the Red Hawks, named the top defensive player in the nation, the Buck Buchanan Award. How cool is that?
Well, I think it's a phenomenal achievement. Anytime you get a national recognition like that, it just brings so much light to our school, and then also Coach Tuke and what he's doing with the football program, and then obviously to have a young man like that coming back into your program. A lot of times guys that receive that type of award, they're outgoing senior.
Right.
So to have somebody like that you can have coming back to your program to promote your program, to recruit, I just think it's a huge recruiting tool. And then also, I mean, people don't know like who Buck Buchanan was, and me being a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I obviously know who he is. But I was, it's funny with football. I didn't even know who Zach was. I knew him by like number and by watching him play football. But then you actually, you go to the media guide and you look at his picture and you say, oh, that's Zach. And it's like he's a really unassuming kid. Some of these guys that are really good football players, they walk around like big man on campus and, got a high self-esteem and probably, got the big head. And Zach is the furthest thing, from that. And so that's the thing that's always appealing to me is like when you see the guys out there playing and then you have to go back to the media guide and kind of look and see, hey, what does he look like? Then you find out who it is, and then you're like, man, that's a great kid because he's that good of a player and he's never self-promoted himself.
Zach Hall, congratulations to him. Jeff Hanza, who just walked in with our guest a little later on in the show, Jonathan Dalton, Redhawks point guard, who had a magnificent game on Saturday and hit the shot that sent the game, basically allowed UT Martin to get it into overtime. But just a fantastic game for Jonathan Dalton. We'll be talking with him. But Jeff Hanza just got back from Texas. He was there, and I know Coach Tuke was there, Brady Barkey, the athletic director. I mean, that was a big deal. They presented Zach with his trophy, I think, was it halftime of the national championship game? Yeah, halftime. And then, to no one's surprise, North Dakota State won for a 7th time.
It's unbelievable what that football program has done. It's down in Frisco, Texas, but I think there's 6 of the past 7.
Yeah.
6 of the past 7 championships, and everybody talks about what everybody else is doing at different levels, but that is a dynasty. And then that coach is leaving out to go to Kansas State. I think they already promoted from within. Either the offensive, I think it was the offensive coordinator is going to be the head coach there, but he'll have a tough task going over and taking over at Kansas State where Bill Snyder did an unbelievable job. A lot of people don't remember back in the day how bad Kansas State football was.
Yeah.
I remember it was the one year where Kansas State played Kansas and both teams came into it without a win. They called it the Dust Bowl at that time. So, but what Bill Snyder did was unbelievable there. So, obviously, he knows how to coach. It's just now going up against like Texas, who spends more money on their college athletics than anybody else in the nation, and you got your Oklahoma. So he'll have his work cut out for him.
And for North Dakota State, 7 national championships. They beat Eastern Washington, a team that won the national championship in 2010. They actually beat SEMO in the playoffs and went on to win the national championship. The national championship at FBS, Football Bowl Subdivision, is tonight. Alabama, Clemson, how do you see it shaking out?
Well, I'll tell you what, first of all, we'll have a house divided. The boys won't be able to stay up to watch the whole game, but they'll get a chance to watch a half. So,
isn't that frustrating, though, as a parent? They start these games so late. It's like, the Super Bowl starts fairly early, but playoff games and, I know in baseball, the World Series, the NBA Finals, they start them so late that kids, there's no way they can stay up.
Yeah, but then there's also a lot of complaints of people on the West Coast, obviously where it's being played at. That game actually started at 5 o'clock out there. And so a lot of people are complaining the fact that they can't be able to get to work and deal with the traffic and also get to that game as well, too. So, it's a give and take on both ends. But my son Deacon was born in Clemson, South Carolina, so he's got his Clemson jersey ready to go for tonight. And for some reason, Mason's a huge Alabama fan, so he wanted a Jalen Waddle jersey for Christmas, so we got him that. So they'll both have it on watching the game. So in the morning tomorrow, there'll be somebody really upset while they're eating breakfast and somebody happy and probably gloating a little bit.
So that'll be the first question. Who won the game, Dad?
Oh, yeah, that'll be the first thing they'll do when they'll want to know that information right away. But obviously, I've got some ties to Clemson, but I just don't see how you can ever pick against Alabama at this point in time. What Nick Saban has done with that program, and then to have the quarterback that they have now. It used to be like, hey, you can get to a point they were so good defensively, but offensively they were a little bit stagnant. But now with the program that they have on the offensive end and all those wide receivers, I think Clemson's a really good defensive team, but they talk about their 2 cornerbacks, but they've got 5 guys, at Alabama that you have to match up with. So you're going to put your 2 best guys on maybe like a Jerry Jeudy and a Henry Ruggs. But then you still got Jalen Waddle. You got to be able to cover the tight end, Irv Smith. You got to be able to cover all these guys, Devontae Smith, that they have. I just think it becomes a huge problem. The thing that's crazy now is everybody talks about their passing game. They still have 3 running backs that's going to play in the NFL. with Damian Harris and Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs is a guy that can just really do a lot of things out of the backfield. So I think at some point in time, the pass rush with Alabama with Quinnen Williams. I think the new deal now is like Aaron Donalds of the world, the guys that can rush from the inside, is not allowing people to step up into the pocket, and that's what Trevor Lawrence is. He's a prototypical, NFL-style quarterback that likes to step up into the pocket. It's not like a Kyler Murray where you're trying to just contain him. This is what he wants to do. He wants to be a pocket passer, and I just think the pocket is always going to be collapsed because of how good Quinnen Williams is.
Well, those guys that play defensive tackle and can rush the passer are rare. I mean, you got to go back. Like before Aaron Donald, the last guy that was really an impact guy at defensive tackle might be Warren Sapp. I mean, they just don't grow on trees.
No, and I think, and Ndamukong Suh was such a disruptive force when he was at Nebraska. I remember watching him in his college bowl game, and I hadn't seen much of him, but I got done watching that game. I said, there's nobody in the country that's better than him. I don't care if it's offense, defense, because of what he did from that inside pass rush. So then I think Jonah Williams, who is the offensive tackle there at Alabama, and obviously an All-American, will be a first-round draft pick. He's described going up against Quinnen Williams. He said he's like trying to block a 300-pound bar of soap. And he just says like he was just he said, I didn't know how good he was, and we felt bad, but then he started doing it against opposing teams, and he started to say, oh, yeah, he is that good.
That'll be on SEMO ESPN 1220 tonight. We will have the national championship game, so you can listen to it if you can't get in front of a television to watch it. And as far as Red Hawk basketball, big week coming up, but we want to go back and recap what happened Saturday at the Show Me Center. It was really amazing. The Red Hawk women in their game, they had an 18-point lead. They ended up losing the game, but in that game there was a 17-0 run, and then in your game there was a 17-0 run. I'm not sure I've ever seen two 17-0 runs like that in back-to-back games, but the 17-0 run that UT Martin put together against you guys did not faze you. You're down 16 at halftime, come back and win the game in overtime, 74-69. How satisfying was that win?
Well, I tell you what, it did phase us. There's no question about it. But the thing that I was most proud of was the fact that we continued to defend when we were going through that scoring drought. I think it was maybe 8 minutes and 41 seconds that we went without scoring. And so for our guys to persevere and still continue to defend through that drought really is what kept us somewhat within striking distance, because if we would have folded on the defensive end with the opportunities that we had on the offensive end where we weren't scoring, then it would have been out of touch. But we were still within reach because of the way we defended. I think UT Martin shot 33% from the field on the game, and maybe something like 26% from the three-point line. And that's the thing that I was most encouraged about, because I thought against SIUE, and maybe it was because of the long break that we had where we hadn't played games. I just think
you went 12 days without playing a game.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
And they played 4 games within that same span. So I just think maybe the competitive fire, competitive juice wasn't there because we hadn't competed against somebody else in such a long time. So maybe we'll have to rethink how we plan those things out. But I just thought that at the end of the day against SIUE, we didn't defend. Even when we came back in the second half, they shot 61%. In the second half. So, and that's not been us. We've been really good on the defensive end for a long stretch of time throughout non-conference. So I just want us to be able to go out and defend the way that I knew we could, and we actually did that. And I think obviously our offense got going there. Isaiah Gable had a big game, and Jonathan Dalton, who you'll talk to, did a great job of breaking down the defense. Sometimes our offense is, hey, Jonathan, I want you to come off a couple ball screens and just make a play. And he continued to do that against the zone, which is really hard to do.
He may lead the league in driving the ball through the lane. I mean, he's always down to the baseline through the lane, and then, he's going to distribute somewhere or if he decides to take a shot. But he had an outstanding game. You mentioned Isaiah Gable. He had a career-high 17 against SIU Edwardsville, and then a career-high 28 on Saturday against UT Martin. Is that who he's going to be? I mean, not a 28-point guy, but, he's really evolving, isn't he?
Yeah, and with our offense, and I think college basketball is really going toward this way, you need a skilled forward that's a threat from the perimeter in order to make your ball screen offense really good. And so a lot of times what's been happening is our guys are doing a good job of penetration, whether it's Alex Caldwell or Jonathan Dalton or Ladarius Brewer, but there's people collapsing on them and then they're kicking out, and we call them kills. So when you kick out to that three-point line after the paint touch, or you pass the ball to one of those guys forwards down low after a paint touch, they simply hadn't been hitting that three. Or any sort of a ball screen situation where you have somebody popping in space, they've been sticking with the guy with the ball instead of respecting that guy popping. So with Zay, if he's going to continue to make shots like that, it's going to make everybody on our team better because it provides instant spacing.
And you stuck with him. He started every game, and he wasn't shooting the ball that well early on in the season. You never wavered. I mean, he was in the starting lineup no matter what, and, boy, it's starting to pay off now, don't you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I can get much credit for that because I don't know if there's anybody else that has the capacity to knock down threes from that forward spot, so it's almost out of necessity. But I give Isaiah a lot of credit because, what you want to see is you want to see a young man work on his individual game and put time into his individual game, and then at some point in time it be a payoff. Well, Isaiah is a guy that's continued to work on his game before and after practice, get in with coaches and get some extra shots up when things weren't going well for him. And so I know he was getting frustrated because he was putting in the work. He was putting in the time but wasn't seeing the results and the dividends. But I think now the time he invested in his own individual game is starting to pay off. And he just hadn't played a lot of basketball. I mean, I know he's a sophomore, but he's a really inexperienced sophomore because he only played about 11 games last season because he broke his foot. So I just really happy with the fact that he is starting to see the results pay off for him with all the work that he's put in shooting the basketball outside of the game.
And everyone is going to be practicing. Those are structured practices. The guys that really excel their game are the guys that are working outside of practice, right?
Yeah, if you're just doing the mandatory, you're not going to be a good basketball player. It's all about what you do in that individual time that you have and making time to go work on your individual game. I always say this, the court in basketball is just like the classroom to me. If you're a guy that just goes to class and never does any homework, well, you're probably going to get a D or F, at best a C. But if you want to do well in that classroom, you're going to spend some time outside of the classroom doing homework, doing research. And so it's the same way on the court. If you're a guy that just goes to practice and that's it, then you're going to be a D or F basketball player. But if you want to do your own homework on your own individual time, those are the guys that start getting A's and B's. And so we always talk about it in that regard. And you need for guys to work on their individual game. And the guys that are really good players, I mean, they have like that intrinsic motivation. It's not hard to figure out guys that can make shots or guys that shoot a lot, that work on their game. Ray Allen, he was notorious. I mean, he would go over before every NBA game 2 hours before the game started, and he'd go on his own before the team left there so he could go through his routine and get shots up every single time. And no matter where he was at, no matter the venue, he would get to that court 2 hours before. There was a story there. They were getting ready to play the New York Knicks, and I don't know what their particular dance team is called, but the dance team was out there practicing 2 hours before he got there, and he started to go through his routine. And they looked at him and said, hey, we've got the court at this time. We need to practice our routine, so this is our allotted time. And he just looked to her and he said, are you guys playing tonight? And so he said he's going through his routine. So he went through his routine, and they went on the other half of the venue and practiced there. But, he does it every single time. And you want to know why Ray Allen is a prolific shooter? It's because he shoots a lot.
Well, also, until Steph Curry came along, I think Ray Allen, statistically, was the greatest three-point shooter ever. Didn't he have the all-time three-pointers made record? I believe he does.
Yes, he does. He surpassed Reggie Miller, I believe, was the guy who held the record right before then. But those guys they just shoot the ball all the time. I mean, that's why they're good shooters.
How is Steph Curry that good?
Well, I think it's two things. I think people talk about his hand-eye coordination. He's a phenomenal golfer. And I'm sure if he'd have played baseball, he would have been one of those guys that could, bat up for 300 because he's got great hand-eye coordination. But it also helps, too, that he was raised in a household where his dad was one of the best three-point shooters, really ever
good
in the NBA, too. So, you have all those things kind of going for you. But, I think once again, Steph spends a ton of time working on his game. You can see, like, it's become now a thing where when people go see the Golden State Warriors play, they get there way before game time to see him go through his routines where he's doing 2 ball handling dribble. He's doing some ball handling work. He's doing cone work. He's working on shooting things. And it's like, people would go watch Dirk Nowitzki and they didn't understand how he was able to make all of those awkward shots that he makes, going off of one foot, fading away, going off the wrong foot. Well, you go watch him practice, he's practicing all of those type of difficult shots, and that's why he makes them. So it's just guys that put in that individual time and individual work.
Steph Curry, best shooter you've ever seen?
I tell you, I got a chance to see a person play against a guy in person, and this was back in it was 1987. Yeah, 1987. I just got done, and I was playing AAU basketball, and that's when AAU basketball was like maybe one team per state. And so I was on the AAU basketball team with the 76ers, and Anthony Peeler was our star guy. And so, we didn't have the internet, so we didn't know about all these other different guys. So we were going to play AAU tournament, and we just thought Anthony Peeler was God. There's just nobody better than Anthony Peeler ever. And so we started playing this AAU game, and there's this guy out there that AP is guarding and is just giving him the business. He's only like 6'1", 6 foot maybe, and I was a so-called defensive stopper on the team. So I come in off the bench and, hey, Rick, you got to shut this guy down.
Slow him down.
I go out there and he hits me for 3 quick threes, and I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he took the ball behind his back, between his legs, or what have you. So we get done. I think he scored 61 against us in that game. And so then I go back home and I said, hey, there's this guy going into college next year that's better than Anthony Peeler. And everybody was, no, there's no way somebody's better than Anthony Peeler. I'm telling you, it's this little dude, and he's going to be really good. Well, the guy turned out to be Chris Jackson that went to LSU, that set the freshman scoring record. And, I just like –
For those who may not know, he was also Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. He changed his name, but originally Chris Jackson.
Yeah. And I think I can say this pretty confident. He's the best freshman to ever play college basketball as far as the season he had. Because back then, in the day when you have maybe some better players, they couldn't play as freshmen.
Right.
But there's never been somebody that had a better freshman season than Chris Jackson had. And so he was phenomenal. So, like, in person, seeing Chris Jackson, I'd be far-fetched to say that somebody's a better shooter than him. But maybe Steph Curry is statistically if you look at these things. But I haven't had a chance to see him in person.
Chris Jackson was a heck of a player. And, ironically, LSU, and, of course, one of the greatest scorers ever, Pistol Pete Maravich, was an LSU guy. Can you imagine averaging 40 points for your career per game with no three-point line?
Yeah, and I always say that's a record that'll never be broken. There's some records that'll be broken, but no one will ever break Pete Maravich's record for scoring career-wise because, first of all, if you're that good, nobody's staying in college more than 1 year to do that. But obviously he stayed in college those 3 years and did it. So, and then to go back a little bit, we played Steph Curry when I was at Purdue.
Really? Davidson?
Yeah, we played Davidson, but he was just a freshman there, and we had a little bulldog named Chris Kramer, who was 2-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year and was just a grown man. And so he played, Steph Curry, and we did like we did against everybody when I was at Purdue. We just fouled every possession. And Matt Painter was like, they can't call them all. So we fouled every possession. And that's back when the Big Ten was physical.
Yes.
They didn't have all these rule changes that they have now. But I'm serious. We fouled every possession. We taught how to foul in practice. So you had Steph Curry, who was this light freshman. You playing against a junior, Chris Kramer, who was coming back from being the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, and he just wore him out. He just wasn't able. Every screen he tried to cut out. Chris Kramer literally pushed him out of bounds. Every screen action, just pushed him out of bounds, and they never called anything. So it was an eye-opening experience there for Steph Curry.
I'm sure it was. All right, with your squad on Saturday, we saw down the stretch your freshman, Alex Caldwell, and I know you would have really loved to have him in that Abilene Christian game. He was in concussion protocol, but you see what kind of a difference maker he potentially could be. All 17 of his points came after halftime, coach, and there were a couple of stretches where he just kind of took over for short periods of time.
Yeah, well, he has an extreme amount of confidence in his game, and he's got an ability to make contested jump shots. And then he also has the ability to jump up over his opponent and knock down shots. So whether it's contested or uncontested, he has an extreme amount of confidence because he's a guy that's all fast twitch fibers. I mean, he doesn't have any slow twitch fibers in his body at all. So he's extremely explosive. He can get to the rim. He does some things around the basket.
We just had his dunk.
Yeah,
his dunk just
and that was easy for him. I mean, he actually won our dunk contest that we had in camp, and that's against some guys that we think are high flyers, and Sage Tolbert and Gabe McLaughlin and Ladarius Brewer, Nigel Russell. All those guys are really good leapers. But, Alex won that dunk contest, and I don't think it was even close. But he's a guy that as he continues to mature and understand all the nuances of being a point guard, that he's going to be a really good player for us.
And you have put him on the floor a lot with Jonathan Dalton, so you've had an opportunity to have them both on the floor at the same time. How much of a transition is that for them?
I don't think it's much of a transition for those guys. To me, the guards have gotten to a point where if you're a good guard, that means you're able to dribble, pass, and shoot. So offensively, it's not a big deal. The only time it hurts is if the opposing team has a big two guard out there, and sometimes those guys get bullied because of their size. But if you look at most of college basketball, especially our conference, most of the two guards are not big, imposing guys. We probably, with our traditional starting lineup, have two of the bigger wings in the OVC out there at the 2 and the 3 spot at the same time. So if we're playing against a team that has like maybe a 6'4", 215-pound two guard, then it could become a problem if they start trying to bully one of those guys. But offensively, it's never a concern.
So Alex Caldwell finishes with 17 points. That ties his career high. He hit 3 3-pointers in the game. What's the ceiling for him, Coach?
Well, the ceiling is what he makes it to be. I think he'll have the opportunity to, once Jonathan Dalton leaves, to be our starting point guard. And there are different types of players. I think that Alex is a little bit more of a threat around the rim because of his explosive leaping ability. But I think he has he can be as good as he wants to be. It's all about how he matures. I always say you can get past your man. Anybody can get past their man in college basketball at some point in time, but there's this thing called help defense. There's going to be somebody coming over and helping. So your decision making once you get past that, your defender, is what ends up separating guys that are really good basketball players and guys that are not. And so I've been around plenty of guys that are able to go by their man. It's about the decision making that you have, that ability once you get past your own man.
And not many players in the OVC better decision makers than the guy we're going to talk to, right? Jonathan Dalton. You may not see him filling up a stat sheet, but if you just watch the game, I mean, he just makes your team go.
Yeah, and I tell you what he does. He does a tremendous job of taking care of the basketball at that position, and that's the most important thing. He has a high assist-to-turnover ratio, and that's what you want at that point guard position. He was one of the better players in the country. I think he was 23rd in the nation in assist-to-turnover ratio, and he was second in the OVC in that stat last year. So I know the transition from him coming from junior college when he first got here was a little difficult because of the bigger bodies and being able to see the secondary defenders that he was so used to just going up and scoring against and being able to do those things at junior college. But when he got here, he had to figure out when to try to finish at the rim, when to try to take that shot, and when to kick it out. And I think he's really grown and mature in that regard.
And you can see what it looks like when you've got a point guard that isn't always making the right decisions or doesn't take care of the basketball, because we saw it with UT Martin. I mean, their guards were sloppy with the ball a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that's really helped us is just like our mentality of that defensive end of being there and sealing those gaps. We talk about it constantly all the time. We don't want to give guys those lanes and opportunities, and we want to shrink the court. And our guys are really active in that passing lane, but we're not out trying to deny. We're just trying to make sure that we seal this gap. We don't give guys opportunities to drive the ball and make plays. And I think our anticipation of when to, like, help and when not to help has gotten really good. But we drill it on it a lot, and we talk about that anticipation piece of it, which I think is the most important thing beyond being able to guard your man one-on-one.
So the loss to SIU Edwardsville was a game afterwards that you were clearly disappointed with your defense. And then I know you were at least a little concerned that you didn't have more time to prepare for the matchup zone that you were going to see against UT Martin, a unique defense. Not many teams that you play have that. Boy, your team really responded well. I know you challenged them with how you thought they played defensively at Edwardsville, and then with the challenge of having to face the matchup zone, I would think you got to be really happy with the way your team responded.
Well, I didn't think that when we was going through that scoring drought that we were really prepared for the matchup zone. But UT Martin's a little different. Last year and the years before, they were 100% in that matchup zone. And I think this is the first year that they're playing man. So they'll always start off in that matchup zone, and if things are going well, they stick with it. If they're having a hard time stopping people in the matchup zone, they switch to a man-to-man, or they just try to change things up. As you know, I always say, like, their matchup zone is their fastball. The man-to-man is their change-up pitch. But I thought what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to inundate our guys with too much information about what to do against the matchup zone. So we tried to run some sets that we thought would do something as far as putting them in the bind on that weak side against two shooters. And I thought JD, Jonathan Dalton, did a really good job of finding the right people. So we would want to put them in the bind where we would have Zay on one side with Alex, or Zay on the same side with Skylar. And so now they have to pick their poison as far as their closeouts, because and kind of the unsung hero and all of that is what our bigs did, occupying that bottom guy. And so they didn't get the ball a lot, but Sage Tolbert and Mark LaRose and Gabe McLaughlin did a great job of getting bodies so those guys couldn't go out there and get it. And like I said, it's a selfless act because they posted 100% of the time and got the ball maybe 25% of the time. So I thought that really put those guys in the bind once they put those bodies on there, and they had to make a decision of who to close out to between those two guys, and then those guys sharing the basketball once that happened, because you get a bad closeout, they would one more to the next guy, and that guy got a great opportunity.
How big was it for this team, and we hope you don't have to play any more games without Ladarius Brewer, and we'll talk about him in a moment, but how big was it for this team to know they can win without Ladarius Brewer?
Yeah, I think that's important, and I tell you what, I think it's important that Ladarius Brewer know that as well too. To me, I think sometimes guys get into that modes and mindset that, hey, this team can't do anything without me. And it's not a nefarious thought or anything like that at all. It's nothing negative. But you know, you get into that sometimes they call so-called God complex that everybody has when they're a good player. But I think it's really important that our team knows that they can have some success without Ladarius Brewer, and they know they can have some success without anybody in the lineup, because there's going to be another time throughout the college basketball season where you're not going to have somebody due to an injury, and you've got to figure out how to be able to win, and the next guy's going to step up in that place. But I think what happened at SIUE was nobody stepped up to the plate defensively for us, because Ladarius is probably our best defensive perimeter player, and I think everybody tried to replace him offensively, but what we really needed to replace him was on the defensive end. So I think it's a learning experience for both the guys that didn't, our team, and then also Ladarius.
All right, you got the MRI back, and I think you had an arthrogram too, right? What's the latest on Ladarius Brewer's hip injury?
Yeah, both of those results came back negative. So thankfully he doesn't have a torn labrum, because those are things that are season-ending and for the most part are career-ending.
Now you explained a little bit of this the other day, but I think it was fascinating, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that don't understand how severe a labrum tear is for a basketball player.
Well, the labrum tear happens because of some sort of bone deformity that you have in your hip, whether it be your shoulder or whether it be your hip, and more importantly for us in the hip. So there's some sort of bone that's rubbing up against the labrum, and it ends up tearing it because of that. So what they do is they go in and shave off that piece of bone that's causing that that tearing to happen. But what ends up happening, because your body is always healing, when you shave that off, it thinks like, hey, I've got to grow that back. So at some point in time, that bone comes back again because of the calcium deposits, and it ends up being the same thing again as far as like rubbing up against that labrum and tearing. And unfortunately, in sports, you don't stop your activity. You're still doing the same activity that caused that tear. Now, if it happened to one of us, no big deal. They'd shave it off, and we're not out trying to run 220s on the track or run up and down the court or play basketball, cut and move. But for active basketball players, there's not been anybody that I've been around that's ever came back from that permanently. They come back from the injury, but they never end up being able to play again. Guys remember Joel Angus, who played for us, had that same type of injury. Went and had the surgery. It was successful. Then he tried to go play again at Hofstra and wasn't able to play because of that same thing developed. So it's something that at the end of the day, it's really career-ending. I think Michael Porter, before I was here, had the same type of injury, and there's been soccer players in the SEMO program that also have had that type of injury. They've never been able to come back and play.
Yeah, people remember Michael Porter from Sykeston, he tried. He had multiple surgeries, I believe, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, it's just something, unfortunately, that never goes away.
All right, as you get ready for Austin Peay and Murray State, we'll talk a little bit more about them when we come back, but we want to talk with the Red Hawks point guard. Jonathan Dalton is going to join us when we come back from this timeout. Red Hawks Coaches Show, we're at Wings, etc. in Jackson on SEMO ESPN.
Deals guy with this week's River Radio Deals half-price deal of the week. Terrific barbecue is what we've got for you from Smokehouse 61 in Cape Girardeau. They also have deli subs, fresh delicious salads, savory soups, $20 certificate to Smokehouse 61 for half price, $10 certificates on sale this Thursday morning, 10 a.m. online at riverradiodeals.com. That's riverradiodeals.com.
Be listening for the 180 Healthcare ticket window to open up for the next big event. For unlimited doctors, no copay, 24/7 gym, and an awesome nutrition app, all included, reach out to 180 Healthcare, 180healthcare.com. Listen for the 180 Healthcare ticket window to open up for the next big event with SEMO ESPN.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network, local.
Just talked with Red Hawks head coach Rick Ray. We'll talk with him again toward the end of the show and get you a little preview of Austin Peay and Murray State. They are coming to the Show Me Center on Thursday night and then on Saturday. So the Racers and point guard Ja Morant will be in town. And if you have looked at any of the mock NBA drafts, Ja Morant is a top 10 and in some mock drafts top 5 NBA predicted draft picks. So he'll be at the Show Me Center along with the Murray State Racers, and that will be on Saturday. This past Saturday, Jonathan Dalton and the Red Hawks were able to knock off UT Martin by a final count of 74-69, and Jonathan Dalton joins us right now. You played 39 minutes in that game. And that includes the 5-minute overtime. I'm not sure you came out of the game in the overtime. Are you tired? I know you're in your prime right now, and you're you 21 or 22?
21.
Okay.
Going on 22.
Do you get tired after a game like that where you played 39 minutes?
Man, I be tired before the game. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I ain't lying.
So after a game like that, though, is it one of those where you're like, man, I want to go and get something, replenish with Gatorade or water or whatever, and I just want to go sit down, go lay down.
Yeah, most definitely. You want to hydrate and just go lay down, text people all night. But other than that, I'd be too tired to do anything.
So do you like getting on social media after a game to kind of see what the chatter is?
Before, after, during, if I could.
Yeah, Coach Ray may frown on that during the game. Is there a cell phone rule anywhere? You can't have them in your locker, or they can be in your locker. Are there any cell phone rules on the team?
As far as in the locker room, like when coach talking and stuff, you just gotta make sure your phone on silent or vibration.
Okay.
But like when we got study hall and stuff, we can't be on our phones. Like we have to turn it in.
Okay. So there's actually a time where you actually turn the phone in.
Yeah, and now I train the Miss Amanda trying to do the same thing when we go to rehab.
Is she successful with that?
Yeah.
So she can be a stickler. Now she's been at this game a long time. She's a good trainer, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. She really cares about us. She's like more than a trainer. She kind of play that mother part while we here and our parents are gone. So.
And she'll whack you on the back of the head if it needs to be done, right?
Yep.
Amanda Martin, outstanding trainer for the Red Hawks. So you're in this game on Saturday. And you guys, I'm sure you didn't know it at the time that it was over an 8.5-minute scoring drought. What's it like when you go through something like that and like, man, nothing seems to be falling? Is there a lid on the basket? You guys went a long time without scoring.
I didn't even recognize that. That was my first time knowing.
Yeah. So as you know the points aren't coming, so you don't. I'm sure you don't know how long it's been. But what's that like when, especially you're the guy who's got the ball in his hands most of the time? You're trying to create the offense, and you just go through a stretch where it doesn't seem like anything's working.
Main thing is, coach stresses defense a lot. I'm guessing that was the first half that drought happened. We kind of came out slow on the offensive end. I'm not sure how many points we gave up in the first half. Was it 30-something?
33.
Just trying to stick with it was the main thing. But I really didn't know we had that drought for 8 minutes.
Yeah. So the play, and I'm sure it's on the highlight reel here. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure it's there. That play you made toward the end of the game where you drove the lane, and I don't know how you flipped that ball in. What's it like to make a play like that, and everyone in the building is on their feet, and it's a huge play in determining the outcome of the game?
It's a big confidence booster. Even though I thought the game was gonna be over after, so I was kind of excited. Then it came down and hit that tough three. And then, you have to go into overtime, but still, my adrenaline's pumping and all that. But during the play, I wasn't necessarily just thinking about, okay, I got the ball, time running out, so I should score. It was just I saw an open lane, and nobody stopped me until the end, and I was already deep. And happy he fouled me while I was going up because I didn't know it was going to go in. But when I looked up, it went in. I didn't even see it go in.
You didn't?
I was falling. And I was just worrying about not breaking my arm. So, I was looking at the ground and stuff. And then I hear the fans howling and my teammates come rushing and picking me off the ground and stuff.
Now, it was an amazing play. For those who didn't see it, he drove the lane and just with his right hand just flipped it up in traffic. It went in, and he got the foul and went to the line. man, you are a reliable free throw shooter. I mean, how much have you worked on your free throw shooting, because you appear to be better than you were last year?
You know, I work on it, but I think the main thing is just being confident at the line. I don't think last year I was as confident. That's really what I've been trying to, you know, me and my dad actually talk about that a lot. Like, he hates how I be missing free throws. He always did. So the main thing was figuring out how to be confident at the line. And I started off making them. And it's like, okay, well, I can do this. It's not as bad as you think. It's really a head thing.
You were in the 90 percentile there for a little while.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like, okay, you was in the 90s before, so, you know, why not try to keep it there?
And you hit 4 of 5, including some big free throws late. What goes through a guy's head when he's going to the line late in a game? I mean, it's a conference game now. I mean, late in the game, and you know you got to step up and hit these free throws. What goes through your mind?
Specifically on that play for the and one, I knew it was up 2, and even then it was like, okay, it's a real big free throw, because at the end of the day they could come down either tied up with a layup, or they could potentially win if they hit a 3 if I don't make this. So in my head it's like, you don't have time to be nervous. Like, your team needs you. So, you know, you just have to kick all that stuff to the side and just believe in all the work you've been putting in. And that was just the main thing.
Well, you've got a nice-looking free throw stroke. Does Sage Tolbert have the ugliest-looking free throw stroke you've ever seen in your lifetime?
Sage got the ugliest shot I've seen in my lifetime. But,
we used to give Daniel Simmons a hard time, but, man, we hadn't seen Sage's jumper at that point.
Yeah, a lot. I know people who don't know Sage, when he had the free throw line, they might jump early because he got, like, the hinge in it. So, but, you know.
He's going to get somebody to go in the lane before the season's over.
I'm surprised it didn't happen yet.
It
Seriously.
will. I got to believe it's going to happen.
Because it's like a pump fake. And then he just let it go. I'd be like, Sage.
It's like a full-body dry heave, right? Just so you step up to the line, make the free throws, and then I know you know the guy that went down and hit that three-pointer to send it into overtime is from Charleston, Missouri. So he played at the Show Me Center in the Christmas tournament. So there were a lot of people there, you know, that came. I know I talked to several people from Charleston before the game. They came to see him. How tough of a degree of difficulty was it when he made that shot? Man, that was almost a miracle shot.
Yeah, I was right next to him when he made that, because my defender was, like, just a couple feet away. Nigel played good defense. He actually made him pump fake and had to step back and shoot a tough contested 3.
Did you think it was he definitely behind the arc?
Yeah, I think so. I didn't really look. They gave him 3 points. So
right. From my angle, it looked like it was close.
The clock was still running, so we didn't really have time to even think about that stuff. We tried to go down and score ourselves. Unfortunately, we turned the ball over. But, you know, it was a tough shot.
Oh, the degree of difficulty was very high, and that was a big shot, and not something that you couldn't overcome.
Yeah, he made a couple tough shots that night, though. You know, he didn't have, like, a great game, but he hit big shots.
He did. And, you know, that's what you see oftentimes out of seniors. How different do you feel this year as a senior versus maybe last year when you were in your junior season?
It's mainly, you know, being more of a leader and being more mature. You know, you one of the oldest guys on the team, and a lot of the newcomers are looking up to you, and they're going to come to you for advice, not just on the court, but off the court, too. And it's just a different mindset you have to have. Even being a junior last year, I was still one of the older guys, and, you know, I'm the one of the few who actually played the year before, even though it wasn't much, but I was still there compared to, you know, a lot of people who was new. So it's just, you know, being that to help these guys out and just having a more mature mindset.
Is it a case where Coach Ray will come to you, or he did come to you, or maybe one of the other coaches and say, hey, JD, we want you to be a leader on this team. We need you to be a leader. Did that conversation take place?
Coach Ray always told me that, even when I first got here, because, you know, being a point guard, you kind of have to have a little leadership in you. But, you know, the team voted me and Mark to be leaders anyway. So knowing that your teammates believe in you to even step in that role, it should, you know, help me and Mark, you know, want to actually be there and be that leader, because, you know, you have your teammates behind you.
Mark Aleros is who you're talking about, and how often does he talk about that new dog of his?
I just seen that dog. Actually, I just seen him because sometimes he picks Donnie dog up and bring her to the dog park.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, when we went on the last trip, I mean, that's all he wanted to talk about was his puppy.
Yeah, I think he had some cats, too.
Oh, he's crazy cat guy,
like
too.
a farm in his house right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet that smells good, right? All right. So as you guys prepare for Austin Peay, I know you know, I mean, they want to make it a rock fight, right? I mean, they just want to get out there and physically manhandle you, and that's what the mindset is going to be coming in, I got to believe.
Yeah, you know, last year they was a very physical team. Their defense was aggressive. You know, they kind of get out in the passing lanes and try to, you know, make you want to drive. And they had 2 big guys down there last year. I'm not really sure. I know one of them are back. And then on offense, you know, they like to punch you in the mouth, down low in the paint. And, you know, it's just something you got to be prepared for. You know, I'm sure Coach Ray going to have a game plan for us to be prepared for that. So we're not really worried about it.
Yeah, now, you are not the biggest of point guards. Do you see teams trying to get physical with you?
Not as much as I would think there is. You know, I'm kind of strong myself, so, you know, I like guarding the post, put the little chest on them.
All right.
Put the chest on them. But on a serious note, I haven't seen it that much this year. I seen it more last year, to be honest. But, you know, it's times when it does happen. Like, I'll be switched off on the big, and the big will try to get me in the paint. But, you know, I'll fight to the death of me. So, you know, I try to keep him from getting the ball.
How interesting is it when it's you and Alex out there on the floor together, because you're 2 point guards, and now you usually end up running the point, but how much different is it when Alex is out there, because he does have the ability to be a point guard as well? And then talk about, you know, how potentially special he has a chance to be. I mean, he is an athlete.
I love Alex. I love playing with him for sure. You know, he's become like a little brother to me, and you know, he comes to me and he always, like, you know, be smart and stuff like that. And we just always talking to each other. I just saw it on that he was talking to me. But, you know, main thing with Alex, I think his potential is off the roof. You know, it's nothing he can't do. You know, he's athletic. He can play above the rim. He can shoot. He can make contested pull-ups. It's just like, you know, he can find open man. Main thing is, like, he's doing all this as a freshman. You know, never played college ball before. And even in the first game, like, you know, against St. Louis, he was in double figures. I think he had 14 points. And he has no fear in his heart. Like, he don't care how big you are, who you are. Like, he's going to bring that same energy every night. And, you know, the fact that, you know, y'all going to be able to see that for 3 more years, maybe, you know, he might go to the league, you know. So I really like Alex, though. I love playing with him. That's because, you know, it takes some of the pressure off me as far as having to be a ball handler all the time. And plus, he could get in the paint. He can find people, too. And it's fun to watch him. You know, he's a game changer, no doubt about it.
Jonathan Dalton, Red Hawks point guard, our guest. I got to ask you, John Morant coming in here on Saturday. And, you know, obviously there are so many college basketball players that really follow what's going on in the NBA. You know, everybody has aspirations of playing pro basketball. What's it like, first of all, to play against him? You did last year when he was a freshman. And, boy, can you believe we got somebody in our league right now that mock drafts say is a top 5 draft pick?
It's not unbelievable that it's him because, you know, even last year you could see that potential he had. You know, he's like 6'2", maybe, and long and athletic. He can really jump, and, you know, he finishes at the rim. He even improved on his jump shot from last year, and he's finding people. So I always saw that potential in him. I didn't think it would be this year that, you know, he would be so high up in the mock draft, but I had no doubt about it. And, you know, that we about to play them. We had to play them twice. Even though you have to lock in on him, I'm sure, you know, if he's averaging all them assists, he got players around him who can knock down shots, so we can't just get lost in him.
Yeah, they got a couple of really good three-point shooters, but he's averaging 9.9 assists per game. That's tops in the nation. I mean, that's a lot of assists per game.
Yeah, and that shows how aggressive he is to be able to score 22 points and still average 9 assists.
Yeah. I think he had 38, and they lost to Alabama. I think he had 25 against Auburn, who's it was a top 10 team at the time. I'm not sure if they're still top 10. All right, you mentioned you like social media, so if we want to follow you on Twitter or Instagram, well, you got to check it out. All right. He's going to check out. So
I'm a real Twitter guy, so
okay.
My Twitter is _, I think 2 underscores, JD10.
JD10.
So, yeah, like J
__.
Yeah,
JD
10. Or you could just put in Jonathan Dalton. I'm sure it'll pop up.
All right, there you go. __ JD10 is how you follow him on Twitter. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
All right, that is Jonathan Dalton, Redhawks point guard. And we will wrap things up with Coach Rick Ray when we come back. Just give you a little preview of what Austin Peay is going to bring to the table here on Thursday night at the Show Me Center. And then we can also talk about the Murray State Racers as well. We'll take a timeout and return Redhawks Coaches Show at Wings, etc.
Wings Etc. is the host of the SEMO Coaches Show every Monday from noon to 1. You can watch SEMO away games at Wings Etc. Plus, get lunch specials and daily specials like 69-cent wings on Monday, 69-cent rib tips on Tuesday, 59-cent shrimp on Wednesday, 69-cent wings on Thursday and Friday, too. Plus, they've got free Wi-Fi and a full-service bar and craft beer. Wings Etc., the definition of a sports bar.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network.
Next week, next Monday, and we'll be recapping the Austin Peay and the Murray State games. And don't forget, on Mondays at Wings, etc., they have, first of all, they've got specials all week long, but on Mondays specifically, their award-winning jumbo wings are just 69 cents. If you're coming for lunch, their daily half-pound lunch specials start at just $6.99, and you'll see all of the best sports on their high-def televisions. When you come into Wings, they are open 7 days a week, late on the weekends, because oftentimes the games run late. And Coach Rick Ray joining us. Austin Peay is coming in. I think most people at the beginning of the season thought it was Murray State, Belmont, Austin Peay, and Jacksonville. And maybe there was a gap between those top four and maybe the 5, and how 5 through 12 goes. Do you still feel that way? I think that's the way the voting went in the preseason poll, but it looks like those 4 teams are pretty good.
Yeah, I tell you what, no one really knows when those predictions come out because there's so many people on rosters that you just don't know about, whether they're coming in or leaving, departing. But I always feel that Belmont, because of Rick Byrd, is going to be really well coached and have good players and skilled guys. They're going to be hard to compete against. Murray State has been a traditional power for a long time. Austin Peay has gotten to a point now with Terry Taylor that he's always going to be in the mix there for having one of the better teams because of Terry and then the people he's put around him and just how they play. They're a very difficult team to play against because of the way they go out and deny and they make it a physical fist fight. And then Ray over at Jacksonville State, Harper, is just a phenomenal coach. He's won every place that he's been. So I think you look at those teams, but I don't think there's a precipitous drop-off in between that time. And so that'll all play out, and we'll see it. I think what was it, Jacksonville State just beat Belmont, and then they had to hang on to beat either Tennessee State or Tennessee Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. So no one really knows.
Now, as far as Austin Peay goes, you and I have talked about it several times, but they really want to manhandle. They want to physically manhandle you, right?
Yeah, and what you got to do is you got to be able to play through contact when it's all said and done. Whether it's you trying to come up and get a catch, when you come up and try to get a catch, it's going to be physical contact. You're going to have to get a leg over and break out. Once you get the basketball, they're going to be into your space, and you've got to create space by being strong and pivoting. When you go down and try to post, they're going to hit you first. We have an adage about rebounding and posting up. He who hits first wins. So they're always going to try to hit you first, and there's going to be a physical combat down there. When you go to the rim and drive the ball, there's going to be physical confrontation. So it's just a tank. You have to get prepared for it mentally and physically, and then also getting our guys to understand they're not calling fouls, because this is their style of play and this is the way that they're going to play. And you got to be able to play through that. So when you start trying to look for refs to bail you out, that's not happening. So
they can't call everything. Right?
Yeah, just the mindset of it. So I think more than anything, and then like sometimes their best offense is just getting up at the rim and then going to get an offensive rebound.
I think they had 20-some offensive rebounds against you last year,
yeah,
right?
It was really embarrassing, the fact that we couldn't get it off the glass. We preparing your guys for that, and it's a fine line, because what you want to do is you want to have physical practices, and you also want to have some rebounding war, but you also don't want to go too far where you end up getting guys hurt in practice, getting prepared to play for Austin Peay. So the preparation part of it is really difficult, because you got to make sure that you're getting ready for that physical confrontation you're going to have, but also you don't want to get you guys hurt.
And I guess we just don't know about Ladarius Brewer's availability for these games, right?
Right. It's all about how he reacts. He'll do some things non-contact-wise today, some cutting in, some moving, and then it's all about his reaction to each step. So then once he goes to that, then he can do some physical contact in a half-court setting. How does he feel after that? Then he finally progress into physical contact up and down the court. Now, how long that progression takes, we don't know. And then more importantly, how he reacts to it. If he ends up having a negative reaction to it, then you got to restart again.
Yeah, it's setback. And real quickly, Murray State comes in Saturday. John Morant obviously headlining that team, now has his own segment on Scott Van Pelt Sports. He does. Every time he plays, he has a John Morant segment, and just Google the mock drafts, man. I mean, there are a lot of people say he's going to be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, he's a special player, and I thought he was really good last year, and I thought he sacrificed a lot of his own individual game. So guys like Terrell Miller and Jonathan Stark could be really good basketball players, but those guys are no longer in the program, and he's now taking that next step. And the thing about him is just not him scoring, it's the opportunities that he presents for everybody else. He's almost averaging 10 assists a game, but the thing you don't see is just how often your defense has to collapse once the shot goes up, because you've got in with him. And so now he's creating driving opportunities for other people, and then when the shot goes up on the rim, you're out of balance because you've just got done helping because of how good he is creating opportunities. Now you're in a difficult defensive rebounding position as well. And then offensively for them, he is a problem in transition. I mean, you don't know what to do. It's like, hey, do we get everybody back? But now he's coming at you with 100 miles per hour with a full head of steam. You got to try to stop him before he gets into the paint. Or do you pick him up full court and try to get him contained somewhat and slow him down? But if you don't get him slow down in that backcourt, then he's by you. Now it's 5-on-4. So, we're going to have to figure that part of it out. And unfortunately, the way this thing is set up, we're going to have to figure it out in 48 hours without, once again, inundating our guys.
All right. Would you rather play Murray than P?
I don't think there's an answer, because then you're not ready for the physicality and the denials of Austin Peay. So no matter what, when you play that second team on Saturday, you're always at a disadvantage. And I think something to be said for having a unique style of play, whether you play all zone or whether you run a Princeton offense. When you play that Saturday, when the team just got done playing Thursday, there's just really no way that they can truly have that game prep ready for you.
All right, it's going to be Thursday and Saturday, and don't forget the doubleheader. The women are going to be playing as well. And we'll see you over at the Show Me Center Thursday, Coach. Thanks so much for your time. Prediction tonight, you're going with Alabama, right?
Yeah, I think Alabama will win. I think it'll be a double digit. I don't think it'll be as close as everybody thinks it's going to be. I don't think it'll be as high scoring as what everybody thinks it's going to be. So I think the domination and the dynasty keeps rolling, tonight. They're just too good.
So Deacon wakes up in a bad mood.
Deacon wakes up in a bad mood.
All right. Coach, we'll see you at the Show Me Center.
Thank you very much.
All right. That is Coach Rick Ray. We're going to get you back into ESPN radio programming. Don't forget, we'll be at Wings Etc. in Cape next Monday. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. So long from Wings Etc.